I used to believe people like Karen never really paid the price for anything. They built their own little empires, enforced their rules, and carried themselves like nothing could ever reach them. But I was wrong, because the day her world fell apart, it didn't unravel slowly. It came crashing down all at once, like something finally giving way after being pushed too far for too long. And the worst part was, it wasn't only her pride that shattered. It was something far more lasting, something no apology, no policy change, no level of control could ever restore. What makes it even harder to grasp is this. Everything that happened that day started with her. Every choice, every restriction, every rule she insisted on upholding, it all led to a moment she never expected. A moment where control slipped right through her hands at the exact instant she needed it most. And by the time she understood what she had set in motion, there was no going back. If you're into real HOA drama and stories that push you to question how far control can really go, you're in the right place. This channel explores moments that feel unbelievable but hit closer to reality than we think. Before we go any further, take a moment to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments below. Karen wasn't just another resident in the neighborhood. She acted like she owned the entire place. Clipboard always in her hand, radio fixed to her shoulder. She moved through the streets with a quiet confidence that made it seem like her word was absolute. It didn't matter if it was something minor like how a trash bin was positioned or something bigger like where visitors could park. If Karen said it, it became the rule. People eventually stopped pushing back, not because they agreed, but because resisting only made life more difficult. Fines came quicker, warnings became harsher, and somehow she always found a way to remind you that she was watching. It wasn't just about rules. It was about control, the kind that slowly seeps into daily life until you start questioning things you never thought twice about. Neighbors talked about her more than they talked to her, and even then it was done carefully, almost cautiously. No one wanted to end up on her radar. But then there was her daughter, Clara, 16, soft-spoken, always kind in a way that felt real, not forced. She greeted everyone with a smile, even those her mother had issues with. And while Karen seemed to build walls around herself, Clara somehow made everything feel less heavy just by being there. You could notice it too. The way Karen's tone softened, even if only a little, whenever Clara was near. Like she was the only one who could reach whatever humanity Karen still held onto. Everyone knew Clara wasn't completely well. Karen dismissed it whenever it came up, saying it was nothing serious. But the way she hovered, the way she kept watch, told a different story. Then came the rule that changed everything. Karen called it an improvement. Something about safety, efficiency, and protecting the neighborhood. A digital gate system with license plate recognition, strict entry control, and one firm condition. If your car wasn't pre-approved, you weren't getting in. No exceptions. Not for last-minute visitors. Not for late deliveries. Not even for situations that didn't fit neatly into her system. At first, it felt excessive. Then it turned draining. Residents had to register license plates days beforehand. A guest arriving without notice would be left outside, repeatedly calling while Karen chose whether to let them in. Even ordinary deliveries became a hassle. Couriers grew irritated and confused as they waited at the gate for approval that sometimes never arrived. And Karen, she seemed to enjoy it. Each blocked entry, every imposed delay only strengthened her sense that she kept everything firmly under her control. At first, people only whispered their complaints, but soon they started speaking up openly, and still, it made no difference. Karen always had the last word, and she made it clear that rules only mattered if they were followed without hesitation. Looking back now, it's hard not to notice how everything seemed to be falling into place for something to go terribly wrong. That afternoon didn't feel like the kind of day where anything could go wrong at all. It was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of stillness that makes everything seem predictable. I remember sitting outside, letting that calm wash over me, watching the street as if it would stay that way forever. Across from me, Clara was there, lost in her own little world, moving with that light, effortless energy that made it impossible to imagine anything ever being wrong with her. And then it happened. One moment, she was fine. The next, everything changed. The rope slipped from her hands. Before I could even process it, she dropped. Not a stumble, not a slow fall, just straight down, like something inside her had suddenly shut off without warning. For a moment, I froze completely. Your mind doesn't catch up right away. It tries to explain things, to soften what you're seeing. But the way her body moved, there was no misunderstanding it. I was already running before I even realized, calling her name, hoping for any kind of response. There was nothing. Her breathing was uneven, shallow, like her body was struggling just to keep going. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone, dialing for help, trying to keep my voice steady while everything inside me began to spiral. Time didn't feel normal anymore. Every second stretched longer than the last, and all I could think was one thing. They needed to get there fast. The sound of sirens usually brings relief. That day, it didn't. I remember hearing them first as a faint promise in the distance, something I held on to while still kneeling beside Clara. Every second felt heavier, like even the air was slowing down just to make things worse. I kept looking down the street, waiting for that moment when help would finally arrive and everything would fall back into place. And then it did arrive. The ambulance turned onto the street, lights flashing, breaking through the silence like a signal that we were about to be saved. For a split second, I actually felt it, that sharp rush of relief. But it didn't last, because the ambulance didn't move any closer. It stopped right at the gate. The digital system lit up just like it always did, cold and automatic. No approval, no entry, only refusal. And there she was, Karen, standing at the gate as if nothing in the world could possibly be wrong. Holding her clipboard, she was already questioning what was happening. Even from a distance, I could see it in her posture, controlled, defensive, annoyed that something was disrupting her system. The medics were trying to explain through the intercom, urgency in their voices as they told her it was an emergency, a cardiac case, a child. But she didn't move. She demanded verification, procedures, and clearance codes, the kind of terms that suddenly felt unreal in that moment. And as she kept arguing, the sirens continued to flash, the ambulance remained stuck, and time kept slipping away. When the gate finally opened, it wasn't because Karen gave in, it was because someone else forced it. I can't even recall who moved first, only that the barrier gave way and the ambulance rushed forward like it had been freed from a cage. But by then, something had already shifted in the air. That urgency we were clinging to began to feel heavier, slower, like. It felt like we were showing up too late to something that had already slipped away. The medics hurried in the second they reached Clara, abandoning everything else as urgency took over. Voices cut through the air with firm commands, hands working quickly, trying to bring back what was already fading. One of them called out her status. Another restarted compressions, but between each movement there was a quiet no one dared to face. Then Karen appeared. She ran down the driveway, still calling out from the gate until the scene came into view. The instant she saw Clara, something inside her froze. The clipboard fell from her hand. Her voice cracked before a full sentence could form. In that moment, every rule she had built her world around lost its meaning. What followed didn't stay hidden for long. At first, Karen tried to deny it, insisting everything had followed procedure, that the system worked as it was meant to, but the truth was already out and moving faster than she could contain. Someone had captured the entire scene at the gate. The waiting ambulance, the arguments, the delay, and once it reached social media, there was no taking it back. Neighbors who once stayed quiet began to speak. Stories surfaced. Late deliveries, blocked access, ignored warnings. Suddenly, it wasn't about a single tragic moment anymore. It became a pattern people could finally recognize. Within days, she stepped down from the HOA. No statement, no explanation, just silence. After that, she stopped appearing altogether. The house remained, but she didn't. And the neighborhood shifted in her absence. Not suddenly, not loudly. Just a lingering stillness, as if everyone understood something irreversible had taken place. No rule, no system, no authority could undo it. After everything, what stayed with me wasn't only that day, but how easily control can become something harmful when it goes unquestioned. Karen didn't begin with bad intentions. She wanted order. But somewhere along the way, she lost sight of the fact that rules without compassion don't protect people. They fail them. And now I find myself wondering the same thing each time I pass that empty gate. Was it simply a tragic accident of timing, or the unavoidable result of her own choices catching up with her? What do you think? Did Karen deserve what happened?